You've probably heard of them. You might know one or two. There could be one hiding among us right now. I'm talking about nice guys. And I don't mean guys who are actually nice. I mean capital N, capital G, nice guys. Men who expect basic human decency and kindness to be rewarded with romantic interest. A lot of the time, they'll even get angry if you deny them these rewards, saying, oh, you know what? Girls only date jerks, or that nice guys finish last. Most of us know that this is not actually true. So how did it become such a common theme and idea among single men? Let's take a look at some of the cognitive biases that can help form these opinions. Meet Brian. As a kid, Brian watched a lot of movies where the princess falls for not the most attractive guy, not the richest guy, but the good guy. So he believes that nice girls go after nice guys. That makes sense. Later on, as he becomes interested in girls, he starts to hold the door open for them. He'll help them with their homework. If a girl he likes has had a bad day, he'll let her cry on his shoulder, and so on and so forth. He considers himself a genuinely nice guy, and most of us would agree. But maybe, despite all this, he's a little bit down on his luck. By the time senior prom comes around, he is left dateless. Now this is very confusing and upsetting for Brian. What happened to nice girls going after nice guys? This is even further exacerbated and can be made worse if Brian is thinking of things in a very transactional manner. The same way we expect candy to come out of the vending machine when we put in money, Brian might expect the prom dates to line up outside the door when he holds the door for someone. So in his mind, he has an equation. He has a way that things are supposed to look. If girls like nice guys and he's a nice guy, he should get a prom date. That is what would make sense. When he doesn't get a prom date, he's left feeling not only cheated out of his candy, but also with feelings of cognitive dissonance. As we heard earlier today, cognitive dissonance is just a mental or emotional discomfort that happens when our beliefs and our actions don't line up. He has a couple different ways that he can get over this cognitive dissonance, because obviously none of us like to feel uncomfortable. He can either change one of his beliefs, he can add an additional belief, or he can change his behavior. Just getting a prom date is easier said than done, and it might not be possible for poor Brian. So we'll take that out of the running for the time being and focus on the things that he does have available to him. The thing that's least likely for Brian to do is probably change his belief about himself, that he's a nice guy. Most of us like to think that we're nice people, and so even if Brian thinks that he's entitled to a date with a girl just because he's been nice to them, doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to change his mind about thinking that he's nice or actually reevaluate how he thinks about women and dating in general. More likely, he's going to dismiss the thought, or it might not pop into his head at all. If he's going to change a belief, it'll probably be his first belief, that girls go for nice guys. Instead, he'll replace it with something more like girls only date jerks, like we talked about before. He might even add an additional belief on top of this, that maybe all of the girls who rejected him were just stupid or shallow. They weren't nice at all, and that's why they aren't dating him. Both of the ideas that he ends up with are great ways for him to move the blame from himself onto those around him. So he ends up with these two beliefs. And most of us know, again, girls don't only date jerks, and probably not all the girls that rejected him were just stupid or shallow. There are a lot of different factors at play here. When he goes out into the real world, he's going to encounter all sorts of different information and all sorts of different examples that oppose his beliefs. And what's going to happen? Again, there's going to be a bit more cognitive dissonance, but also Brian is going to engage in confirmation bias. He's going to focus on the examples that do line up with his beliefs while ignoring everything else. Even if there are only one or two examples that make sense, one or two girls that do date jerks, and dozens or even hundreds of examples that don't line up for him. I'd like to clarify that this is completely unconscious. Brian isn't physically turning away when he sees a happy couple together. His brain is just automatically and unconsciously ignoring the information that doesn't line up with his beliefs while focusing on the stuff that does. From here, it's a downward spiral. Brian goes back and forth between cognitive dissonance and confirmation bias, back again, further and further justifying his beliefs. Additionally, in the modern era, we have to worry about things like online communities that can act like an echo chamber and even further justify Brian in his beliefs that, for example, girls only date jerks. I'm sure you've heard of many of them before. All in all, Brian ends up digging himself quite the hole, and it can be very hard to get out of. Again, cognitive biases, including cognitive dissonance and confirmation bias, are unconscious, and we have to try and actively override them. We need to be, in our everyday lives, all of us, thinking actively about our beliefs and about our behaviors, or else, before you know it, you could be a nice guy too. Thank you.